Hot days, some great keepers, and one very cool surprise find. Well, welcome back to Finding America. This week's episode consists of two separate hunts. Now, before I get to that, one of my subscribers, Keith Reed, who lives in Missouri, sent me a couple really awesome pictures of himself wearing his Finding America t-shirt. Well, thanks so much for that, Keith. I really appreciate it, buddy. And if you'd like to send a picture of yourself wearing your Finding America t-shirt, you can do so by sending it to this email. So in this hunt, I was pretty much on my own that day. Chris couldn't make it, and it was seriously hot. And everywhere I went, I'd start hunting and discovered that I could not get my digger in the ground. The ground was that hard. So I went from place to place with no luck, and I thought, well, let me try my favorite dig-it-all spot because it does have some shade. And I went over there, and luckily, the digger went in with some effort, but it went in. So I hunted there, and it was about the only place I could find to hunt. And I was just hoping to find a couple keepers. I'll tell you what, I did just that, and I found one find that was very, very cool. Well, next thing that looks kind of interesting. Kept getting a 23 to 29 signal bouncing around. I pulled out 3 huge nails out of this hole, and then finally it settled on 28, 29. And I finally got down to it, and I popped it out, and then I just grabbed the camera. But check this out. That is either a lid for, has to be a lid for some sort of box. I was thinking maybe a cigarette box or cigarette case. Well, let me brush this off. It definitely has a bit of a design to it. Very cool piece. You can see the hinges there. And let me get it cleaned off, and we'll see what it looks like. Well, check that out. That is gorgeous. It's got a butterfly landing on all these flowers on it. Man, is that a beautiful design? Wow. What a gorgeous piece. Yeah, I went to go brush it, and I realized my brush fell out of my pouch somewhere in the middle of this field. So I've been walking around for about 10 minutes because I really like this brush. And I thought, well, what the heck, this would be a good time to show you this brush. Now, it has really firm bristles, but not too firm. And Chris found these over at Lowe's, and they are excellent. They really are. And I just love this brush. That's why I just walked all over the field for 10 minutes. But next time you're in Lowe's, you might want to look for one of these. It is definitely a great tool to have out here just to clean finds off out in the field. Well, I had very high hopes for this signal. I was ringing in 28, 29, nice tight. Dug down about 7 inches and saw that sitting in the hole, and I'm like, oh boy, and then, oh boy. That is an automatic transmission washer. And so I wasn't super thrilled with that, but I started to fill the hole, and I saw something flash in the dirt, and check it out. I got a little bonus find. Nice little marble. So, that's a pretty cool one. Milky, clear, and green. Yeah, that's a nice looking marble. So there you go. The hole wasn't a total bust. And I love digging up marbles. So that was definitely a good hole in my opinion. Well, this next thing was giving me a bit of a high tone. I went after it. I was ringing up 28, 30, and I pulled a nail out first, and then it told me the signal was still in the hole, so I kept going, and check out what I got. You might recognize that if you saw a couple of videos ago. I found one of these. These are the good luck tokens that people could make on the arcade machines. And I haven't brushed this one off to see what this one says. I love digging these because they can say anything. It was up to the person buying the good luck token what they wanted printed out on this token. So I will brush it off and be right back with you. Well, I really like this one. This one says Thelma Lee something of Morristown, which is a town about, I don't know, 40-50 minutes from here. And it says good luck in the center. The other side is blank and it has the American flag. But I tell you, I love digging these up. And just sometimes they have really unusual messages. Sometimes they have the people's name, like Thelma Lee of Morristown. Well, I'll tell you what, this next find, completely unexpected. Yeah, when I pulled that thing out of the ground, I still didn't know what it was, but I soon did. And let me tell you, it's a find that I just love. Okay, I don't know if this is going to be something good, amazing, or bazinga. I'm not sure. Let me just go through this. I was getting a 19 signal, and I scooped the dirt out, put the pinpointer in, and it told me to keep going down. And I pulled out this wrought iron bracket. So I'm thinking, cool, I guess that was it. I run my pinpointer over the dirt, and I start to move the dirt around, and I got this, holy cow. You see that? I have no idea what that is. Let's pull it out. I saw the edge and I was like, get the camera. Wow, I don't know what this is. Hang on just a second. I'm gonna brush this off here on my pants. Oh, I don't know what it is. I'll tell you what, I hate to do it, but I need both hands to clean this off. I'm gonna get some water and the brush and see if there's anything on this, but it's very cool. Alright, I will be right back. Alright, well, take a look at that. I'm putting this one in the awesome category. It's an emblem to a Nash. That's awesome. This has got to be, it's really early. Oh man, it's so beautiful. It's a brass emblem to a Nash automobile. Oh, that is so awesome. I've never found anything that had anything to do with Nash. I'll be dang. I can't wait to find out what your car and where this went on. Probably on the hood or something. It's a pretty prominent emblem. But I am going to guess and say 20s, possibly earlier. Don't know. But what a heck of a find. It's amazing. I was chasing that piece of iron. I think this must have been on edge because I was not getting, because when I run the Equinox over this, it gives me like a 30, 32. And wow, that is so awesome. I love anything old and automobile because that's what I do for a living, sell classic car parts. I've been doing classic cars since I was in college. So what a great piece. I am so thrilled to have that. Well, I love finding automotive items, especially those really early items from the very beginnings of the automotive industry. And I especially like to learn about the men who founded the companies, men with great drive and vision. Now, Charles W. Nash, he was one of those men. And if you're like me, you didn't really know that his story was one of the greatest rags to riches stories in the history of the United States. Now, Charles Nash was born in 1864 to a poor farming family in Cortland, Illinois. And unfortunately for Charles, his parents separated when he was only 6 years old. As hard as it must have been for him to see his parents get divorced, his parents actually abandoned him to the state. And because of that, his fate was left up to the courts. Now, the courts decided that Charles would work for free as an indentured servant on a sponsor's farm in exchange for room and board. And according to the contract, he would receive 3 months of schooling a year while he was working on the farm. And the contract also stipulated when he finally reached the age of 21, he would have fulfilled his contract and he would receive $100 and a brand new suit from his sponsor. Well, understandably, Charles was very unhappy with this situation growing up. And when he turned 12, he ran away. And he found a farm that took him on as a hire and paid him $8 a month. He then moved on to another farm where he made $12 a month. And it was at this farm where he finally learned a trade. He picked up carpentry from someone on the farm there. And he used that skill and joined up with another guy to build some machinery to press hay. Now, pressing hay was taking loose hay that people brought in from the fields and basically baling it. Well, he also met and married the farmer's daughter, Jessie, in 1884. And soon thereafter, they moved to Flint, Michigan. Now, back then, Flint, Michigan was known as the Vehicle City. And that was because of the number of wagon makers in that town. Now, one such company, the Durant Dort Carriage Company, hired him on as an upholstery stuffer for $1 a day. And thanks to Nash's smarts and hard work, within 6 months he became the superintendent of the factory. And within 10 years, he became the vice president of the company. Now, during those years, the company transitioned from wagons to automotive, and the company built bodies for Buick, who had been recently acquired by GM. And as a reward for his smarts and his hard work, Nash was sent over to Buick, not only to run the company, but he actually became one of the owners of the company. Well, under Nash, Buick became profitable, and it wasn't very long before he became the general manager of General Motors, taking over the position from his former boss, William Durant, in 1912. Under Nash's leadership, GM made immense gains in profit and productivity. Under Nash's leadership, GM's profits were restored in 1914 to a level of $7.2 million. And incredibly, by 1916, Nash had increased the profits of General Motors to $29 million. Well, unfortunately, by 1915, a power struggle ensued within GM. It seemed William Durant, well, he wanted his job back. And Nash found himself right in the middle of a struggle between Durant and the bankers. Well, in 1 year, by 1916, Durant once again controlled the majority of voting stock. And of course, he wanted Nash to stay with the company, so he offered him $1 million a year salary. Well, Nash didn't want any part of that. He actually described the salary as being more than a man is worth. And he resigned in 1916. Well, after that, Charles Nash swore he would never work for another man again. And he left GM and immediately bought a small car company called the Jefferson Motor Company in Kenosha, Wisconsin, and renamed it Nash Motors. The first Nash model was built in 1917, and it was an instant success. And over the years, he continued to work hard and put out quality products, and Nash became the 4th largest auto and truck manufacturer in the United States. And one thing Charles Nash also was, he was an American patriot. He used his company in order to help the United States during both World Wars, building trucks, airplanes, any type of equipment that they could make and that was needed. Now, despite Charles Nash's success, he always downplayed it. He said, "I'm the most common cuss that ever lived." Well, by the time that cuss, who started out as a 6-year-old indentured servant, passed away in 1948, he left an estate worth $50 million. By today's money, that's $522 million. And I have to say, that's not too bad for a common cuss. Well, I was getting like a 23 out of this hole. I dug down and I dug this. You might be saying, what the heck is that? It's actually part of an emblem to an old car. And there wasn't quite enough there for me to figure it out. But then I found a little bit more of the emblem in the hole. And there you have it. Now that is from a Ford Galaxy. So that is pretty cool. Probably looking pre-64. Well, this one was bouncing between 18 and 19. And first thing that popped out of the hole was a nice little tire to a toy car. Looks like bias ply. It's actually a nice spare, just don't know what model it fits, but nice little piece. And then I dug down about 8 inches and I just popped out this pocket knife. Well, next thing was giving me a pretty decent little high tone. It was starting to hit the 22, 23 range. And got up to 25 once, but I dug down pretty far, about 9 inches, and got a nice 1800s harmonica reed. So another nice old find. Well, I was so happy to see this next find. I'd been looking for one of these for years, not like actively looking, but I always wanted to find one. And I know a lot of people out there have probably found one, or even many of these, but for some reason I've never dug one up. And when this came up, I was thrilled. Well, I just found a very cool item. Here I got a 13 signal. Sometimes it's nickel, sometimes it's big iron. Now this time, yeah, it's definitely big iron. And I mean literally. It's a big iron. I love this. Check this out. This is actually a first for me. I've never dug one of these. But it's an old cast iron, and it would have had a handle that you gripped and you ironed your clothes with it. That is awesome. I can't wait to get that in some apple cider vinegar, and sometimes they have interesting designs on them, but that's awesome. I love it. And that sucker was way down there. We're talking like 9, 10 inches. So I saw the iron in the hole and I was like, well, I just like pulling the big iron out just to see what it is. I'm glad I did, because this is my first one. I know probably a lot of guys that dug a bunch of them, but I never have for some reason. But what a great find. Well, we definitely got some good keepers on those hunts. And I really hope you enjoyed this week's episode. But please, don't go away just yet. I have some very cool historical photos that I'd love to share with you, and they're coming up in just about 6-7 seconds. So remember, history is what makes that find a real treasure. And I can't wait to see you back here next week on Finding America.